Hi everyone, my name is Kara and welcome back to the Little Mission Garden. Today I wanted to talk with you about one of the most iconic symbols of fall, pumpkins. I want to share some tips on harvesting and storing pumpkins, and of course I want to share with you my epic pumpkin harvest for this season. I planted pumpkins late this spring in my new basin bed garden, and this is not the first year I tried to grow pumpkins. I tried growing pumpkins last year in my stock tank garden with very poor success. But this year, just look at this harvest. I planted, I don't know, probably 6 pumpkin vines and I got 50 pumpkins in total. This is very exciting to me because it's the first year I have grown anything in my new basin bed garden. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with all of these beautiful pumpkins, but I have a few ideas that I'll share with you soon. Before I get into harvesting and storing pumpkins, I wanted to talk about the varieties that I grew this year in case you want to grow them for yourselves. I bought my seeds from Native Seed Search here in Tucson. All of the varieties grew pretty well here in the summer heat, but there was one variety that was the clear winner, and that was the Magdalena Big Cheese. The Magdalena Big Cheese is a cheese pumpkin, as its name implies. And cheese pumpkins are called cheese pumpkins because they look like big wheels of cheese. I harvested 37 Magdalena Big Cheese out of 50 pumpkins and squash. The next variety that I tried was the Calabaza de las Aguas. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I hope so. It's a cushaw type pumpkin. It was rediscovered by the Raramuri peoples in a place called Copper Canyon, Mexico. And they planted it with the rain. And that's why it has the name Calabaza de las Aguas. It's a small to medium-sized pumpkin with light orange flesh, and it's said to be very tasty and very sweet. I haven't tried it yet, but I'll let you know. I only got 4 of these, but I only planted 1 vine, so I don't think that's too bad. The next squash that I tried was called a Rancho Marquis, and that's also from Native Seed Search. This one is from Sonora, Mexico, and it's said to be a good keeper that gets sweeter with storage. I got 5 of these out of 50, so not too many, but I also only planted 1 of these vines. And the very last one that I tried was called a Dark Night Pumpkin. This pumpkin looked like it was going to be very beautiful from all the pictures that I saw. It was supposed to be black on the outside and bright orange on the inside, which made for a very dramatic picture when cut. I was gifted these seeds. However, when the pumpkin grew and matured, it just turned orange. It just looked like a normal pie pumpkin that you would get from the store. Very plain and ordinary and orange, although beautiful because it's a pumpkin. I got 5 of these alleged Dark Night pumpkins. I probably won't grow them again next year just because I want to try some other more interesting things. And I haven't tried eating any of these varieties of pumpkins and squash yet. In another video, I'm going to be making some recipes and sharing those with you, and I will report back on the flavor of each one of those. The description of these is that they taste sweeter after being stored for a while, so I will report back and let you know if that's true and what they taste like and what the difference is between eating them fresh and eating them after they've been stored for a little while. If you'd like to try any of the varieties that I mentioned apart from the Dark Night, because I was gifted those seeds, you can look those up on the website for Native Seed Search. That's where I purchased my seeds. I will say that their availability depends upon how much backstock they have. Sometimes they'll take them down and not sell them on the website because they need to grow out and replenish and refresh their seed supply. So sometimes you'll find things there on their website, and then other years they're not available. I have extra seed that I hadn't planted, so I'll probably just store that and then plant those again next year. I can't collect the seeds from these pumpkins because I didn't isolate them far enough away from each other, so they've probably been cross-pollinated. Okay, so now that we've talked about the varieties of pumpkins I tried this year, I want to talk about how to harvest and how to store those pumpkins once they're ripe. The first step in harvesting your pumpkins is knowing when they're ready, and there are a few signs that you can look for to make sure that you harvest them at the right time. You definitely want to let them get nice and mature on the vine before you harvest them because they'll taste better and they'll store better if you do that. The first thing that you need to consider is time. Most pumpkins and winter squash take 90 to 120 days to mature fully from seed to harvest. Be sure to keep good records of the date that you planted them and the variety that you planted. That will help you know what to look for the following season if you decide to plant them again, but it'll also help you know when the window of time is that they probably are ready to be harvested. The next thing is color. Pumpkins and winter squash will take on their beautiful, mature color when they're nearing harvest time. You'll be able to see either in the ads for the seed company that you purchased them from or from online photos what that mature color is supposed to be. So just definitely be looking for that. The Magdalena Big Cheese are a kind of like a salmon beige kind of color, very similar to a butternut squash. One of them was an emerald green color for a long time. It turned from a beautiful emerald green to an emerald green and salmon spotted pumpkin. And then from there, it just gradually lightened up until it became completely beige or salmon color. And so I knew it was getting close. The third thing that you want to look for is how the stem looks. When a pumpkin is immature, the stem is going to be kind of a fresh green looking color, and as it matures, it will turn into more of a dry brown color. Once the pumpkin is mature, that dry brown color will also look a bit cracked, which is called corking. And at that point, you can be pretty sure that your pumpkin is mature. In fact, if you just take the pumpkin and you give it a little twist on the vine, just very gently, a lot of times it'll just pop right off. And that's how you know it's ready. It doesn't always pop off. Sometimes you need to use your garden shears to cut it, but a lot of times it'll come loose pretty easily. My final tip for you is to test the rind hardness. If you try to pierce the pumpkin skin with your fingernail and it doesn't go through easily or at all, then you know that it's hard and mature and that it's ready to be harvested. Once you've determined that your pumpkin is ready to be picked, it's time to harvest it. And the best way to do that without damaging your pumpkin is to take a nice sharp pair of garden shears and clip the pumpkin from the vine. Leave about 3 to 5 inches of stem, and that's because as you store the pumpkin, having enough of that stem is going to help prevent rot. If you're nervous about harvesting your pumpkin, you can always just leave it as it is on the vine until the first frost. This is called field storage, and it's perfectly fine to do that. If you start seeing the vines withering and dying back, that's totally normal at the end of the season. It's not going to hurt your pumpkins at all. Now, if you leave those out and they get frosted, that can damage the fruit, so be sure to harvest your pumpkins before the first frost comes. Now that you've harvested your beautiful pumpkins, it's time to store them. The first thing that you need to do is wipe them off with a damp cloth to remove all of the dirt and debris. If you're planning to store your pumpkins long term, over the next few months, you need to find a nice, dry, dark, cool place to store them. A lot of people like storing them in a garage or a basement or a cellar. As long as the area that you're going to store them in is out of the direct sunlight and around 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, I think that will be just fine. November in southern Arizona is still too hot. Yesterday it was 90 degrees, so I'm not going to store mine in the garage. I'm going to store mine in a closet in my house that stays cool. Remember the old adage, one bad apple spoils the bunch? Well, one bad pumpkin can spoil the bunch too. So when you store your pumpkins, make sure that you store them in a single layer rather than stacked on top of one another. You don't want to bruise them, you don't want to break any of their stems, and you don't want any pumpkins that are touching each other to spoil one another if one of them starts going bad. Check on your pumpkins regularly to make sure they're behaving themselves. If one starts to spoil, you don't want that to cause its neighbor to spoil as well. I think that's all you need to know about harvesting and storing your pumpkins. I am planning to follow this video up with another one so that I can share some pumpkin recipes with you all just in time for Thanksgiving. I can't think of a cozier food to celebrate Thanksgiving with, whether you're making something savory or something sweet. I'm also planning to weigh all of my pumpkins so that I can find out how many pounds of pumpkins I harvested, because 50 pumpkins and squash sounds pretty impressive, but I really want to know how many pounds of food that actually translates into. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.